I have one thing to say before I start. Um, I looked through my YouTube video log. Those people who are not aware that what that is just me seeing what videos are getting views, which videos is getting more hits, and I looked at one of my videos and I had somebody share a couple of my videos and they ended up getting viral. If Here's the thing. I don't mind people sharing my content, but once it blows up and it gets viral, please do me a favor and let me know what's up. I really would appreciate it. But anyway, back at the topic at hand. Akiba's Trip, Undead. No, it's not Undead. I'm thinking about a better game. Akiba's Trip, Hellbound and Debriefed is an action beat 'em up, open world if you give it that, RPG game that is based on the Akiba Trip series. In the streets of Akiba, you are investigating the disappearance of a friend and getting beat up in an alley. A woman takes pity on you and shares her blood with you by way of a kiss. Calm your ass down. So by doing so, you become a vampire. And now you're on a quest to find out not just those who are responsible for beating up your friend, but putting a stop of the vampire outbreak in Akihabara. I'm a huge fan of Akiba's Trip. I love Akiba's Trip. When several years ago, when Akiba's Trip Undead and Undressed came out, I did not know what the hell this was. But then when I found out that the people who made Akiba's Trip was the same people who made Killer is Dead, that was on the PS3, one of my favorite Hitman slash Devil May Cry games. When I found out that they made that game, Akiba's Trip, I was like a marvelous follower. I was like, you know what, I want to check this out. So when I played it, I fell in love. I love the game's mechanics, even though it kind of drew me away of the whole configuration of trying to control your character. I had to take a break from it because the character controls was so confusing. So confusing to the point where I was literally getting frustrated playing the game. But after a couple days, I got used to it, and I ended up being an Akiba's Trip king. I ended up stripping people down to the bone, and it was one of those games that I really loved, and it grew on me. And when I found out that they was making another one called Akiba's Beats, not only did they change the whole style of the game, but they changed the whole premise of the game's mechanics. And I didn't mind that because it's a way like, hey, you want to start something fresh? You can do that, but you're putting the franchise at risk. I liked that Akiba's Beat, but I wasn't satisfied with it. After I beat it, I just left the whole thing alone. They made an anime series, which I thought was fantastic. See, Akiba's Trip was out there. It's not like low key. They made a few games. They made an anime. I mean, they've been out there. So I'm saying that to say this. The more material that they make, the more risk that they're putting out there. So when Akiba's Beat came out, here comes Akiba's Trip, Hellbound and Debriefed. When I found out they was making this game, I was like, oh great, I hope it's not Akiba's Beat, because I didn't really like Akiba's, sorry about that. I hope he doesn't mind us being on the video. But anyway, I was hoping that it wouldn't be like Akiba's Beat, because I did not like the button mechanics. I did not like the way how, like, I just did not like a lot of things about the game. It was okay. It was pretty good, but I wasn't intertwined with the game to the point where I was satisfied. So when I seen a trailer of Akiba's Trip, Debriefed, I'm just gonna say Debriefed. When I seen Debriefed trailer, I was getting a lot of the first one. I was getting a lot of Undead vibes, and I was like, great, we're getting this same game again. We're getting this game again, and I couldn't wait because I waited over like what 4 or 5 years to play another Akiba's Trip game that was just like Undead and Undressed. I'm about to tell you guys, if you are jumping on the edge of playing an Akiba's Trip game, I suggest you play Akiba's Trip, Undead and Undressed, or at least play Akiba's Beat. Even though Akiba's Beat was not that great, some people may even not like the game, but I suggest you stay away from this one. Because this one is even worse. Everything about, I'm just going to be very quick with this shit. Everything about the original Akiba's Trip, Undead and Undressed, everything was great. Everything was great when it came to the development cycle, the story, like the pacing, everything. The way how you strip the characters, the specials, everything was very well polished. And when there was some times where the game would drag, I would not give Akiba's Trip, Undead and Undressed a perfect rating because there were some times where the game would drag, doing some unnecessary missions, but it would pay off. It would pay off, and you would feel very rewarded with the shit that you had to go through. Hellbound Debriefed is worse in all aspects. The character development, the story, the controls. Here's the thing. I already didn't like the way how the story started. The story starts off where your best friend gets his ass pummeled in an alleyway. But then you get your ass beat. Not as bad as your friend. Your friend is actually at the brink of death. But then the girl that kisses you and gives you the vampiristic power to save yourself, I first thought to myself, and this is how bad the story is. You decided to save me, even though I just got hit to a wall. But you didn't save my friend, and he was dying. What made you think that I was more important? So they didn't really explain that. So it's just at that point that didn't make sense to me. Because with Akiba's Trip, Undead and Undressed, the story development was spot on. You was at the brink of death. So the girl ended up helping you the same way that this girl did, but at this one it didn't earn it. It did not warrant it for me. So the story progresses and we get intertwined with characters in the game, just like the characters on the original. But unlike the characters on the original, the characters on here I didn't really give a shit about. Not one character on this game didn't stand out for me. In fact, what made matters worse is on Undead Undressed, you actually have varieties of choices to make your connection with the characters grow even more and more and more. You actually had. I have so much in my mind right now, but I'm trying to get it all out. You actually had romance options to romance the characters on the game. That was pretty unique. So it actually pushed you to try to get every single ending of the game possible. But unlike this one, you don't have that option. You have options to make them hate you and like you, but that's it. You're not going home with no girl in this game. So you can also forget about that. But that's what made me not like the characters. I like, you don't have to have that option in there to romance them, but there was no scene where they pulled their weight to make the progression of the game even more. There was not one character on there that made me like them. There was not no character in the game that made me hate them. So I did not hate no characters, or I did not like any characters. The characters on the game felt like they didn't need to be there in the first place. And by that, it made me not just hate the game, but it made the game be boring. Remember when I said that the controls on Undead and Undressed was a little bit like confusing and I had to get used to it? These controls on here is worse. They're clunky. They, like, when you input the buttons, they sometimes don't work. There were times where they have a manual of how to control the characters and how to do certain move sets, but 7 times out of 10 you don't execute it correctly. Well, you do execute it correctly, it doesn't show, and that's infuriating. I wish it would show the input screen of what you're putting onto the game, because there were times where I would swear that I'm pushing the right button and then it wouldn't work. But then when I would give up, then it would work, and then I'm like, all right, what the fuck? And then another thing, where's the specials? You, like, on Undead and Undressed, you can strip clothes out of enemies. That's how they die. When they get into direct sunlight, what's protecting them is their clothes, just in case if it's confusing some people. But if you rip all their clothes off, they die in direct sunlight. Now, the same thing can be done to you. But what made Undead and Undressed what made it enjoyable was not just that you can choose the weapons, but I just love the fact that you can actually strip off multiple enemies and it can execute a finishing move like an exit, like a chain button reaction. You got that on Debriefed, but there's no special execution moves. There's no creative way to how to strip the enemies. You just rip them off, and that's it. And you don't feel no satisfaction at all. Especially if you played Undead and Undressed, because it gave you so much material when it comes to you fighting these hard enemies. With this one, you rip them off, and that's it. The missions on here is stupid. Every mission on this game, especially the side missions, is dumb. Now I have to grant, like some of the missions will involve the main story, but you have missions on the game that just makes you feel like, why the hell am I even doing this? And then the missions on the game really doesn't really make any sense. I keep comparing the two, but I'm just trying to let you know what Undead and Undressed did right and what Debrief did not do right. Now, I was hearing that people were saying that this is actually a remake version of the game, but I'm feeling like if you're going to remake a game, why don't you correct what the issue was with the original? Instead of the graphics. If this is a remake, if this is not a remake, then just scratch what I said. But going back to the missions, they tell you where to go, but they don't give you no indication of how to get there, where these items is located. There are some missions where you have to buy a certain item, and you have to go to a store that have the item, but they may have like a few of these items. So you have to just, if you have a lot of money, you have to just buy them all like a jackass and just hope for the best. It's a strategy flaw, and I don't like that in video games like this. I feel like if you're gonna have a mission, give us a clear visualization of how we're gonna do these missions the right way. If a mission fails, then it's only because we did not do it right. But if a mission fails because you did not tell us how to do it correctly, then it's your fault. Just saying. Speaking of stores to go to, I said this is an open world game, but in what way? I mean, you're in Akihabara, but most of the stores look the same. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 different areas you can visit in Akihabara, but the stores in 4 or 5 of those areas look the exact same. They sell most of the same shit, and the different shit that they sell doesn't really make a big difference. What Undead and Undressed, Akihabara was a lot same like this one, but it was more lifelike. They actually had a lot of more things to choose from. So I feel like if you're gonna remake a game like I mentioned, look at what you did on the other one and try to at least include this one or add more material on it. I think that's the reason why not a lot of people are talking about this game. Because they don't know what to say about it, but by me being a critic, I gotta say how I feel about it. Even if I get disliked or even if I get corrected, just let me know. You know what I'm saying? I just did not enjoy that. I just did not feel this shit. I did not feel that this game was successful. And then one other issue, I'm really bashing on this shit. The one other issue I had on this game is that there's no way for you to create your character. Now, Undead and Undressed actually had this issue too. You're actually forced to play as a boy character. But it depends. On the Vita version, you can actually choose to play as Supersonico or as another female. But for female gamers, or for people that want to play as a black character, because you can't play as a black character on this game unless you beat it. So you have to go through every single thing that I mentioned that was wrong with the game if you want to play as a black character, if you want to play as a female. All you are able to do on this game on the first playthrough is change your name. That's it. And I feel like that's bold, especially if you know what this game is. This game, in my opinion, now this is just my opinion, for people who started playing Akiba's Trip and you end up buying this to test the waters, you didn't make a mistake. I'm not saying that you made a mistake. I'm saying that you didn't. But all I'm saying is I recommend you playing this one first so you can see how good Undead Undressed is. So this game is actually at least playable, because I was able to beat the game, but it's not worth playing the second time. I don't care if you didn't unlock all the endings. Save yourself the frustration. Save yourself the energy. Play. There's a lot of other games that you can play right now. Play It Takes Two. Play Neo: The World Ends With You. Play the new Aliens game. This game, Akiba's Trip, Debriefed, and Hell. I'm actually getting tired of talking about this shit. Let me go ahead and rate this shit right now. I'm gonna go ahead and give this shit a B minus. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. I feel like with Akiba's Trip, by me being a fan, this isn't me hating on the game. This isn't me talking shit about the game. It may seem that way, but this is me showing tough love. I was gravely disappointed in this shit. And I feel like for people who want to play Akiba's Trip, you can play this one, but just for the experience. But I suggest you play this one and you play Undead Undressed. Will I recommend you playing Akiba's Beat? That's a good question. That's a good question. Maybe if you don't like the controls on the original and you want to try something different, yes. But I warn you, the controls on Akiba's Beat you're not gonna like it. Well, that's all I have to say for today. Please stay tuned for more of my upcoming reviews and videos headed your way. This is Hugo, your critic teacher, and you guys have a damn good day.